Should you self-publish a children's book or should you choose the traditional publishing route? That's what we will explore in this video, which also includes looking at actual numbers to help you with your decision. Hi there, I'm Eevi, an award-winning children's author and ghostwriter over on eevijones.com and the creator of Children's Book University. I create videos specifically for children's authors, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly videos. The first question I'm usually asked when people learn I'm a children's book author is, have my books been published via a traditional route or have I self-published them? I always answer the same way. While I did jump through all the hoops of query writing and manuscript sending, which resulted in the offer of a publishing deal, I ended up turning it down and instead decided to publish my book back then on my own, under what was to become my own imprint. I weighed my options carefully, and while it was a number of years ago, the reasons for my decision still hold true today, over 50 books later. Don't get me wrong, receiving that coveted book deal seems glamorous. It's the ultimate dream of most authors, but it's important to consider the advantages and disadvantages of each option. You may of course have your own reasons for choosing one over the other, but here is a list of factors that led to my decision to go the self-publishing route. One of the most often cited advantages of traditional publishing is the fact that the publisher is able to distribute your book through actual brick and mortar stores. Being able to see your own books on Barnes & Noble shelves would be such a dream come true for so many of us. However, it's important to remember that even if our book makes it into our neighborhood bookstore, oftentimes it's soon pulled off the shelves again to make room for the next round of newly published reads. So unless it is truly selling well, the shelf life of a book is often quite short. Also, don't forget that even if we self-publish our book, we can still get it into actual bookstores. It won't be automatic and it will require some legwork, but seeing self-published children's books in bookstores happens more often than you might think. Another perceived advantage of being traditionally published is that the publisher will help the author with the marketing of their book. In the past, it was an important factor in the decision-making process, mainly because most authors aren't familiar with this side of publishing. Nowadays, however, unless you are already a well-established author with a major following, publishing houses no longer pour money into a marketing plan or strategy for most unknown authors. Instead, they expect their author to do all that on their own. The third factor that led to my decision to go the self-publishing route was that most traditional publishers maintain control over multiple different publishing aspects. For example, when you decide to self-publish, you are the one setting the price the book will sell for. You are the one who gets to choose the illustrator and the illustration style. And you are the one who sets the publishing date. It's true that you will also be the one who will have to bear all of the costs involved in creating your book, but you will also be the one reaping the majority of the benefits. The fourth factor that led to my self-publishing decision for me was the time. The time it takes to find an agent, the time it takes to find a suitable publisher and to then send out the query letters, and the weeks and months it might take to hear back. Going the traditional route takes so long. What might take me a couple of weeks or months might take a traditional publisher close to a year, especially since there are illustrators involved as well. So if you have a very original idea, or perhaps you want your book to address a very current event, going the traditional route might not be the best way, because by the time you went through the process, the book's topic may no longer be as relevant. For example, during the pandemic, one of my readers of my how-to book wrote and self-published a beautiful children's book about germs and the importance of hygiene. And that book took off and blew up immediately. And this may have never happened the way it did if she would have waited with the publishing. And the final deciding factor that led to my decision to self-publish were the royalties. It is true that the publishing platform you will use is going to take a percentage of your book's revenue, but that percentage is really nothing compared to what a traditional publishing house would receive. Royalties often are one of the main deciding factors, so I thought it might be really helpful to break it down a bit more and even share some actual numbers with you. Now, a quick side note here is that the royalties very much depend on your book and its content, like the number of pages, the number of illustrations, colors and paper settings of your book, the chosen trim size, and the price you set for your book. And your royalties also depend on your chosen distribution settings, so keep that in mind. But to give you a general idea, here are the royalties for one of my books, including its price point at which I'm selling it for each format. Now remember that as children's author, my books are in color and very image heavy. Royalties for most books in other genres are usually much higher, especially if they are not printed in color and don't have any images. So the sales price of the paperback version of one of my books is $9.97, and the royalties I receive for this book are $2.33, or 23.37% of the sales price. The ebook version of the same book sells for $2.99, and my realized royalties are $1.69, which are about 56.52% of the sales price. And the hardcover version sells for $16. The royalties received here are $1.96 per book, which makes it around 12.25% of the sales price. So as you can see, royalties are highest with ebooks and the paperbacks percentage-wise, which is also the reason why I tend to push these formats during my launches. Now, if I were to compare this to royalty standards with the traditional publishing world, paperback royalties would be more between 10 to 12.5% for paperbacks, as opposed to 23.37%. That's a big difference. I went ahead and added the link to KDP's handy dandy tool to calculate your royalties per manufactured book. Feel free to play around with the number of pages, the list price, and other interior settings to see your possible earnings. Now, one thing that would be important to remember here is that we as authors can always purchase author copies on the back end and then sell them at events. Because we get our author copies at the cost of printing, this will increase the profit margin substantially, but this of course does require us to first purchase these copies ourselves before we can sell them. And to give you an idea percentage-wise, the printing costs or the author copy costs for the same book I previously shared are as follows. For my paperback that again sells for $9.97, the printing costs are $3.65, which means I can purchase an author copy for $3.65, leaving me with a profit of $6.32 once I sell it. And for my hardcover that sells for $16, the printing costs are $7.53, leaving me with a profit of $8.47 once I sell it. So these are much higher profit margins. And remember that I can always tweak my profit by increasing or decreasing the sales price of my book. Again, as a self-published author, the sales price is pretty much up to me as long as it's set above the required minimum price that is meant to ensure that the printing costs are covered. Traditionally published authors, on the other hand, don't really have the ability to adjust the pricing of their books. So by taking the time to look at the advantages and disadvantages of both the self-publishing route and the traditional route, I knew I wanted to go the self-publishing route. While I do carry all the initial creation costs for things such as the book's illustrations and the purchase of an ISBN, I also receive so many incredible benefits that made it such an easy decision for me. I'm still making more royalty-wise as most traditionally published children's authors would, and I receive benefits such as the fact that there are absolutely no setup costs for authors on KDP, which is the publishing platform I am using. We pay exactly $0 out of pocket to have our books either printed or distributed, unless again I wish to purchase author copies. We also have absolutely no upfront costs, no inventory we have to carry or keep track of, and no storage costs. And we also have absolutely no distribution costs. Shipping and handling is all taken care of. And perhaps most importantly, we have one of the largest online marketplaces in the world that carries and offers our book with no costs to us authors. Now, if I were given the chance to publish with a big and well-known traditional publisher, would I consider it, knowing what I know now? Well, for the right terms and conditions, absolutely. But for now, I prefer not spending any more time or energy chasing a deal. Instead, I prefer focusing on what I love most, which is the writing and ghostwriting of children's books and helping others to do the same. Self-published authors now win awards, sign movie deals, and make the New York Times bestseller list, or in my case, the USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And there are plenty of self-published authors who take home a much bigger royalty check than many traditionally published authors. In my How to Self-Publish a Children's Book that I wrote a few years back, I said that nowadays it's no longer how we have been published, but that we took our destiny into our own hands and had the balls, the passion, and the perseverance to simply go for it. It's about what we create and whom we are creating it for. The means of how we publish our work only becomes relevant if it becomes something that we let ourselves be defined by. I really hope you found this video helpful and encouraging. Whichever route you should choose to go, remember that in the end, it's your book's why that matters the most, not the how. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. Here's to your power to publish your own children's book. Bye!